Ex-homeless redditors, what was the scariest thing that you ever saw on the streets? I was homeless back when I was 19. After a few weeks of sleeping rough, I was approached one evening by a man dressed as a priest. At this point I had no idea if he was a priest or someone out to deceive me. Being wary of the priest outfit, I straight away told him I have no interest in talking about God. What he said next has stuck with me ever since. I am not here to talk about God, I'm here to make sure you are safe. We talked for quite a while until it was dark, and that's when he offered me a bed for the night. Alarm bells were going off in my head, but he had seemed genuine, so I went with him. He drove me to a house in the suburbs and asked me to wait in his car whilst he spoke to someone. A few minutes later he returned with another man who offered to let me sleep in his garage for the night. Everything inside me was saying this is a bad idea, but I accepted as I had nothing left to lose. The garage was pretty standard: tools, workbench, etc., except in the corner there was a box spring and some blankets. There was a connecting door to the main house that the man told me he would have to keep locked during the night. He apologized but said he had kids in the house and couldn't take the risk. The priest asked if he could come by in the morning and speak to me, then went into the house. The man. I don't think I slept at all that night. I was terrified. I had no reason to be afraid of either man, as they had been nothing but nice to me. However, after living on the streets for a while, you come to learn that nothing comes for free and you shouldn't trust anyone. The morning rolls around and the most amazing thing happened. The man knocked on his own garage door to ask me if he could come in. This might not sound amazing, but when you've been living rough with zero privacy, someone asking if they can enter your space, which is actually his space, gives you a sense of being human again. Someone actually respects you enough to ask your permission. I spoke with both him and the priest every day for the 7 weeks I slept in his garage. Between them they managed to get me into a subsidized efficiency apartment, think studio apartment but a lot smaller, got me a job and helped me get my life back on track. That was over 20 years ago, and I will also be indebted to both of them. I still sent Christmas cards to the man whose garage was my home and visited him 2 years ago for Thanksgiving. Sadly, the priest passed away a few years back, but I guarantee that if there is a heaven, he got fast-tracked in. There is a drainage ditch in my area that the local homeless people tend to bed down in. A few years ago, when I found myself destitute, I spent one night down there. That night I witnessed a Molotov get thrown into another dude's spot, which led to a huge fire that ran rampant through the area. Yeah, I bought a tent the next day and started camping in the local mountains. I was staying in a homeless shelter that had a men's side and a woman's side. Most of the men were convicted sex offenders. In the 8 months I spent in that hell on earth, I was friends with 3 women who were raped by some of these men. The truly scary thing? The women were actively discouraged from telling anyone what had happened, especially the police. If they filed a report with the police, they were permanently barred from the shelter. That place, one of the most celebrated in my state, regularly has the mayor and governor drop by, is the most evil place on earth. ETA, the Pine Street Inn, Boston, Massachusetts. It just didn't occur to me to say where, cause I never expected many people to see this. Also ETA, the rapes didn't take place inside the shelters. The men stayed in one building, the women in another. The rapes took place outside, after dark, in areas that didn't have good CCTV coverage. And tie for my first awards. Waking up to a shotgun being pointed directly at my head. I wasn't truly homeless but had no money or bank card and was trying to get back to my parents following nearly being strangled to death by my ex. The actual fight happened whilst we were out, so I had no spare, no clothes. I'd left my wallet at his and only had a dying phone on me. I tried getting money for a train but only really managed enough for a bus fare to the next town and decided to try hitchhiking. Late into the night I gave up and managed to sneak into a barn where I was able to get comfortable enough to sleep. Turns out I didn't close the door enough and the farmer found me in the morning after taking his gun to investigate. He woke me up, I think he coughed loudly, with the gun painted at me, and I nearly shat myself. It asked me what I thought I was doing in his barn and quizzed me on how I got in. He asked to see my arms before he lowered the gun, and he started chatting. He was quite nice though, and after talking to him for a while he took me back to his house and fed me and let me have a shower. I had been homeless for a couple weeks now and had made friends with this couple. They seemed pretty chill but had a bit of a drinking problem. Anyway, one night I was sleeping, could hear some commotion going on, couldn't make out who it was or what was going on, until my buddy comes and sits on my sleeping bag, blood pumping out of his neck, like full on. Every time his heart beat it would splurt out, not under huge pressure but it was pretty bad. I asked him what happened and he said he think his missus had cut his throat with a Stanley blade. He was so drunk he was not aware of how bad his injury was, and insisted I did not call an ambulance. So I called the police, they called the ambulance. I see the dude a couple days later, still homeless, scar on his neck. He's ever so grateful the nurse had told him how lucky he was. He was literally a couple millimeters away from dying that night. Edit, I'm no longer homeless. This all happened about 6 years ago now. I no longer speak to him. This is another long story. She was arrested but not charged. Last year she committed suicide, so she's no longer with us. I'm a woman in my early 20s. Not my brightest decision, but I slept in my car for several weeks, when I was completely out of money. Every night I parked in a small cul-de-sac. As far as I knew, the area was office only, so I didn't take anybody's parking lot, and in the morning I left. I worked a lot, so usually I slept like a log. One night though I woke up, feeling anxious for some reason. I looked up and saw a softly illuminated window right above me. Nice, warm light as if from a grandma bedside lamp. I freaked out a bit and fumbled for my keys. I better sit the rest of the night out at McDonald's or something. Then I noticed a silhouette not far away. A man was standing still and watching me. He didn't knock on my window glass, didn't try to talk or anything. He was just watching. I booked it out of that cul-de-sac real quick. You know, the thing that freaks me out the most is not even the fact that he could assault or rob me then, but the realization that he may have watched me every other night, but I was too tired to notice that earlier. Let's see. Funnyish, guy at the shelter I stayed at got stabbed in the ribs by another guy. The guy who stabbed him just walked inside and attempted to go to sleep, while the guy who's stabbed is sitting on a bench literally spurting blood out of his side, and he lights a cigarette. When the staff called 911 and tried to help him, he was pushing them off saying he was fine. Horrible. There was a gas station down the street. A guy paid for gas, took the hose and doused himself in gasoline. I was smoking outside and I remember him walking by outside the yard area with a lighter in his hand, arm fully extended out. He was very mentally ill, so I didn't think anything of it. I couldn't smell gas or anything like that. I continue to smoke, light another one up. About 10 minutes later I'm inside bullshitting at the front desk and a dude runs in the front door and shouts, "Give me wet towels." A guy set himself on fire across the street. Homeless shelters aren't in good areas, so I just walked out casually thinking some idiot at the apartments across the street had set a rug on fire and the dude who ran in was just being a dumbass. I walk out the front door and sure enough, on one of the stairwells Terry's flames. My thought process was basically, yep, some dumb fuck slit a roo, oh fuck. The rug sat up. Me and 3 other guys ended up being the ones to put him out. He wouldn't though. I don't know if the gas had to burn off first, but probably. I don't really remember putting him out, I just remember after. I don't remember a smell or anything. The morbid thing I do remember is he was out and he just kept shouting, my balls are on fire. Put out my balls." He died 3 days later. I was told it wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. The shelter ended up sending me to therapy, and the woman was the best therapist I'd ever had. I still get weird sometimes and can't really watch people on fire in movies anymore. Edit, this happened around 2011 in Kentucky, so it's a while back now. I've been slowly putting my life together again since then. The last time I was homeless was in 2014. I'm still struggling financially, especially now, but I'm studying computer programming in my spare time so I can hopefully get where I want to be in life. I'm sorry I can't reply to everyone individually. I know you have questions. I can try to answer them, but I don't have a blow-by-blow on my feelings at the time, and I'd rather state that outright than reply individually with bullshit. I can say that my in general way of dealing with things is through sarcasm and inappropriate times humor, so I'm sure there was lots of that after it happened, but I can't say for sure. I'm not sure how to reply to the posts saying it's better off at some point just to let someone burn. I'm not sure what to say to that. Thanks for the kind words. Oh God. I was homeless in Seattle for many years. I've seen some horrible things, ranging from bum fights that ended in one of them dead, to people next to the downtown Macy's stepping over an overdosed dead body that they thought was just someone sleeping. But the worst thing was probably seeing this methed out drug dealer guy who, at the time, had a bad reputation already on the hill, throw a 15-year-old homeless teen girl over an overpass bridge onto the freeway. She was killed. Edit. Wow, everyone. Thanks for all the recognition, questions, interest, and kind words. Seriously didn't realize my experiences would gain that much attention. There are some far, far worse memories here, and I just want to continue to remind everyone that these things happen in every large homeless population. Help the homeless, don't judge and bash them. There's a lot of amazing things you can do for the homeless in your city, including organizing homeless feeds, or giving out essential bags filled with dry socks/underwear, hand sanitizer, toothbrush/toothpaste, feminine hygiene products, a granola bar/trail mix/nuts/high-calorie or protein snacks, bottled water, face/body wipes, etc. If you can, donate some sleeping bags or jackets to shelters or even a homeless person themselves. And don't film yourself for clout. Filming yourself giving homeless people things they so desperately need is cringe to me. Do it out of the kindness of your heart, not for likes and upvotes. Not what I saw, what I heard, if that counts. For a while I slept in an empty warehouse. I'm in the UK, so it was a huge Victorian building with about 6 floors. I slept on the 3rd or 4th floor, out of the way of casual intruders. Drunks and prostitutes used that space, and one night I heard a load of shouting and a female screaming from the ground floor. Now I was 16, a junkie and about 120 pounds, so I wasn't in any position to do much, but I crept down the steps to see what was happening. By the time I got there, the place was empty and the noise had stopped, so I went back upstairs. I found out the next day they found a body in the wasteland outside. Turns out the woman was a prostitute. They assumed her client stabbed her after a struggle and she'd made a run for it before he caught her and finished the job. Always wonder if I'd been able to help, but I'd have probably got stabbed too. Skeptical. I was working in a mountain town and couldn't afford rent, even with 2 jobs. One night I was wasted after work. Me and a work friend were always there by ourselves, closing, so the bar was free game. Left work at 2 a.m, walked the hour and a half back to my tent outside of town. While being stalked by a mountain lion, I assume I looked injured and could be an easy meal. It was terrifying. I had a digital camera with me, so I just kept pointing it in the area of the ridge where I could hear it walking and flashed repeatedly. Made it home safe. Another night after closing, different campsite. I must have smelled like a huge gyro after working a double at Peter's in Paradise. Got into my sleeping bag in my tent. I was just about to doze off when I heard big crunches of a black bear sniffing me out. I was frozen with terror. The bear put his about against the nylon inches above my head. Hot steam on my face. I had pulled the sleeping bag up to my cheeks, petrified, when I slapped the bear's nose above my forehead. It was an involuntary reaction and I felt stupid, but I spooked the bear and it took off. I got an apartment with some friends soon after. There's a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly which interviews prostitutes, disturbed homeless, drug addicts, tricks, gang members, etc. in LA's Skid Row. For them, gang rape, torture and murder are common on the street. Listening to their stories is cray. I'm currently homeless and this is why I stay out of homeless shelters and away from other homeless. Fist fights at 2 a.m., loud arguments, people trying to get into your shit while you sleep. You don't get sleep in those places anyway and it's all risk with no benefit. When you own nothing, you can't afford to lose the 2 shirts, pair of pants, 3 pair of socks, cell phone and phone charger. Lucky enough to have a cell phone with no service but workable with Wi-Fi. Can't lose it. I couch surf ATM, which has its risks, but overall it's much safer than the shelters. Downside being I never know where I'll be, so finding work is near impossible. Almost had an apartment and work at one point, but roommate started hearing voices and kicked me out before I could be added to the lease. Previous roommate, 2 ago, that put me in the homeless situation also started hearing voices and straight up disappeared on my ass. I think I must drive people crazy or something. Stayed in my car for 9 months, I worked, and past 6 months been couch surfing, work when I can afford to. At some point I'll run out of couches and be forced into shelters and around other homeless, and that scares the shit out of me. At some point I'll have to devolve to becoming accustomed to living on the streets, doing anything to survive. If I don't find someone willing to put me up till I can get back on my feet. Which won't happen. Everyone who's let me crash longer than one night has been a creep with no respect.